You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
When it comes to ensuring your company has top-notch security practices, things can get complicated fast. Vanta automates compliance for SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and more, saving you time and money. With Vanta, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing Trust Center. Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Our listeners can claim a special offer of $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/cyber. That's VANTA.com/cyber for $1,000 off Vanta. The exploitation of the LiteSpeed Cache WordPress plugin has begun. Halliburton confirms a cyber attack. Velvet Ant targets Cisco switch appliances. The Keelan ransomware group harvests credentials stored in Google Chrome. Ham radio enthusiasts pay $1 million ransom. SolarWinds releases a hotfix to fix a hotfix. A telecom company will pay $1 million fine over President Biden deepfakes. The Justice Department is suing the Georgia Institute of Technology for allegedly failing to meet required cybersecurity standards for Pentagon contracts. Our guest today is Dustin Moody, mathematician at NIST, speaking with N2K's Brandon Karpf about post-quantum encryption standards. And when it comes to phishing simulations, sometimes the cure is scarier than the disease. It's Friday, August 23rd, 2024. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here today. It is great to have you with us. Hackers have begun exploiting a severe vulnerability in the LiteSpeed Cache WordPress plugin just a day after its technical details were disclosed. The vulnerability affects all versions up to 6.3.0.1 and allows attackers to escalate privileges without authentication. The flaw originates from a weak hash check in the plugin's user simulation feature, enabling attackers to brute force the hash value and create rogue admin accounts, leading to complete site takeovers. Over 5 million sites use LiteSpeed Cache, but only 30% have updated to a safe version, leaving millions vulnerable. WordFence has detected over 48,500 attacks exploiting this flaw in just 24 hours. Users are urged to upgrade to version 6.4.1 or uninstall the plugin to protect their websites. This is the second major security issue with LiteSpeed Cache this year. Halliburton, one of the largest oil field services companies, confirmed that its networks were impacted by a cyber attack, as first reported by Reuters. The incident, which occurred on Wednesday, appears to have affected operations at the company's Houston headquarters, though it's unclear if other locations were impacted. Halliburton employs nearly 48,000 people globally and generated over $23 billion in revenue last year. The nature of the cyber attack remains unspecified, but some staff were reportedly told not to connect to internal networks. Halliburton is working with external experts to address the issue and has activated its response plan. Despite the attack, the company's stock remained stable. The incident highlights ongoing cyber threats to the petroleum sector, though experts say disruptions to Halliburton's operations are unlikely to affect gas supplies. Researchers from Signia document the threat group Velvet Ant, who earlier this year exploited a zero-day vulnerability in Cisco switch appliances, enabling them to evade detection and maintain long-term access within networks. This vulnerability allowed attackers with admin credentials to bypass the NXOS command line interface and execute arbitrary commands on the underlying Linux OS, leading to the deployment of custom malware named Velvet Shell. The malware operates invisibly, making detection by common security tools difficult. Velvet Ant's shift to targeting network devices like Cisco switches demonstrates their evolving tactics in a multi-year espionage campaign. This highlights significant security risks associated with third-party appliances, emphasizing the need for enhanced logging, continuous monitoring, and threat hunting to detect such advanced persistent threats. The Keelan ransomware group has adopted a new tactic, deploying a custom stealer to harvest credentials stored in Google Chrome. This method, observed by Sophos XOps during incident response, marks a concerning development in ransomware strategies. The attack began with Keelan accessing a network via compromised VPN credentials, followed by an 18-day dormancy, likely used for reconnaissance. The attackers then moved laterally to a domain controller, modifying group policy objects to execute a PowerShell script that collected Chrome-stored credentials across all logged-in machines. These stolen credentials were exfiltrated and traces were erased before deploying the ransomware payload. This approach complicates defense, as widespread credential theft can facilitate further attacks and make response efforts more challenging. To mitigate risks, organizations should enforce strict policies against storing credentials in browsers, implement multi-factor authentication, and apply least privilege principles. The ARRL, the American Radio Relay League, is a national association for amateur radio enthusiasts in the United States. A letter to their members says that in early May of this year, ARRL's network was compromised by threat actors using dark web purchased information. The attackers infiltrated both on-site and cloud-based systems, deploying ransomware across various devices from desktops to servers. The highly coordinated attack took place on May 15th, leading to significant disruption. Despite ARRL being a small nonprofit, the attackers demanded a multi-million-dollar ransom. After some tense negotiations, ARRL paid a $1 million ransom, largely covered by insurance. The organization quickly formed a crisis management team and involved the FBI, who categorized the attack as uniquely sophisticated. Most systems have been restored, with the Logbook of the World back online within 4 days. ARRL is now simplifying its infrastructure and establishing an Information Technology Advisory Committee to guide future IT decisions. SolarWinds has released a second hotfix for its web help desk software to address critical vulnerabilities, including a serious issue with hard-coded credentials introduced in the first hotfix. This flaw, with a CVSS score of 9.1, could allow remote unauthenticated users to access and modify internal data. The new hotfix removes the hard-coded credentials, fixes an SSO issue, and resolves the critical remote code execution vulnerability that the initial hotfix aimed to address. CISA quickly added the RCE bug to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, indicating it may have been exploited in the wild. Organizations are urged to apply the latest hotfix immediately to secure their systems. Lingo Telecom will pay a $1 million fine for transmitting deceptive robocalls in New Hampshire that used AI to spoof President Biden's voice, violating federal caller ID rules, the FCC announced. The robocalls, sent before the New Hampshire primary, were arranged by political consultant Steve Kramer, who's also facing a $6 million fine and criminal indictment. The FCC emphasized the need for transparency in AI usage in communications. Lingo Telecom also agreed to a compliance plan to prevent future violations. The Justice Department is suing the Georgia Institute of Technology and an affiliated company for allegedly failing to meet required cybersecurity standards for Pentagon contracts. The lawsuit, backed by the False Claims Act, purports that Georgia Tech's Astrolavos lab did not develop a proper system security plan as mandated by the Department of Defense and falsely reported their cybersecurity assessment to the Pentagon. Despite implementing a plan in February of 2020, the lab reportedly failed to cover all necessary devices. The whistleblower lawsuit, filed by two former Georgia Tech cybersecurity team members, alleges a lack of enforcement of cybersecurity regulations at the university. Georgia Tech disputes the claims, stating that the lawsuit misrepresents their commitment to innovation and integrity and insists there was no breach or data leak involved. Coming up after the break, our guest, Dustin Moody, mathematician at NIST, discusses the latest post-quantum encryption standards. Stay with us. And now, a word from our sponsor, KnowBe4. It's all connected, and we're not talking conspiracy theories. When it comes to InfoSec tools, effective integrations can make or break your security stack. The same should be true for security awareness training. KnowBe4, provider of the world's largest library of security awareness training, provides a way to integrate your existing security stack tools to help you strengthen your organization's security culture. KnowBe4's Security Coach uses standard APIs to quickly and easily integrate with your existing security products from vendors like Microsoft, CrowdStrike, and Cisco, 35 vendor integrations and counting. Security Coach analyzes your security stack alerts to identify events related to any risky security behavior from your users. Use this information to set up real-time coaching campaigns targeting risky users based on those events from your network, endpoint, identity, or web security vendors. Then coach your users at the moment the risky behavior occurs, with contextual security tips delivered via Microsoft Teams, Slack, or email. Learn more at knowbe4.com/securitycoach. That's knowbe4.com/securitycoach. And we thank KnowBe4 for sponsoring our show. Enterprises today are using hundreds of SaaS apps. Are you reaping their productivity and innovation benefits, or are you lost in the sprawl? Enter Savvy Security. They help you surface every SaaS app, identity, and risk, so you can shine a light on shadow IT and risky identities. Savvy monitors your entire SaaS attack surface to help you efficiently eliminate toxic risk combinations and prevent attacks. So go on, get savvy about SaaS and harness the productivity benefits. Fuel innovation while closing security gaps. Visit savvy.security to learn more. Dustin Moody is mathematician at NIST. He recently sat down with N2K's Brandon Karpf to discuss post-quantum encryption standards.
I'm joined today by Dustin Moody, supervisory mathematician at the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. And Dustin's here today to fill us in on the recent standards released by NIST around post-quantum cryptography. Dustin, great to have you on the show. Really excited to have this conversation.
Great. Happy to be here.
So could you fill us in just on the background of NIST's project for post-quantum cryptography and where we've gotten to today and ultimately what the goal is for the program?
Yeah, certainly. So since the 1990s, cryptographers and others have been aware that if a large-scale quantum computer could be built, it would break some of the crypto systems that we rely on to protect our information. Back then, it was mostly a theoretical concern because quantum computers were imagined, they weren't realities. But since then, different companies and organizations have been working on building them because they would bring a lot of positive benefits to society. They could do a lot of things that our current computing technology cannot. At NIST, our particular group deals with cryptography, and we approved the algorithms that the federal government uses to protect all of our information. So we were aware of this. Probably around 10 years ago, we started scaling up our project a little bit because we saw the progress in quantum computers was growing and that they were becoming larger. They're not large enough to threaten current cryptographic levels, but we need to get these standards in place well in advance of that. So at NIST, we started building our team and our expertise, and we eventually decided that the best way to create new standards to get new crypto systems in place would be to do a large international competition-like process to select algorithms that we would evaluate internally and the cryptographic community could also evaluate. And NIST has done this sort of thing in the past, and it has gained a lot of acceptance, a lot of credibility because people can trust the algorithms that come out of this because they've been so well studied. So we announced that back in 2016 that we would be doing this. In response, we received a large number of submissions. We had a total of 82 that were sent in to us from different teams around the world who had all designed the best algorithms that they could come up with to provide protection. Over the past 8 years or so, we've gone through a series of evaluation and analysis. Internally, both we've looked at them, we've implemented them, checked out their performance benchmarks. And similarly, people around the world have been doing the same thing. Some of them were broken along the way. That's what happens. The strongest ones survive, and we have more confidence because they've been studied so carefully. So after a series of 3 rounds, back in July of 2022, we announced the 4 algorithms that we would be standardizing as a result of this process. Since that time, it took us a year or two to write up the standards for those algorithms, but that's where we are now.
Great. So could you walk us through those standards? There was, just in the last few weeks, 3 that were officially released, and it sounds like a 4 might be on its way. Could you walk us through these?
Yeah. So we were looking for 2 different cryptographic functionalities, one of which is to do key establishment, or you can equivalently do encryption, and another is to do what's called digital signatures, which are used to provide authentication online. We selected a few algorithms for each category. For digital signatures, we selected an algorithm called Crystals Dilithium is the main algorithm that we expect people to use. It's based on something called lattices. We can get into all the math if you really wanted to, but most people are just happy to know that it's on something called lattices. We also selected 2 other algorithms, another algorithm based on lattices that's called Falcon. It has smaller key sizes than dilithium, but its implementation is a lot more complex. You have to use floating point arithmetic, and many devices might struggle to securely implement it. So it's available for certain applications that really need those shorter signatures, but most applications will be able to use dilithium just fine. The third signature that we selected is called Sphinx Plus. It's based on a different idea than lattices. The idea there is to have a backup in case there's some attack or some vulnerability discovered. We have something not based on lattices. So it is around for that purpose. However, it's a bit slower and bigger, so it wouldn't work in many applications. But if security were your number one concern, its security analysis is a bit more conservative. So for some users, it might be their choice. So those were the 3 signatures. We selected an algorithm called Crystals Kyber for key establishment. It was also based on lattices. Over the course of the past 8 years, lattices turned out to be the most promising area for post-quantum algorithms. It has great performance, has great security. So it was selected. Now, 3 of those were standardized. That's Kyber, dilithium, and Sphinx Plus. They came out in documents that we call FIPS, Federal Information Processing Standards. And they first went out for public comment. We had a draft form. We got some feedback, made a few small changes, And then just a week ago, we published them in their final form so that people can begin to use them. The fourth algorithm, Falcon, that was selected, we're still writing the standard. It's not yet done. We wanted to focus on dilithium first because it's the primary signature we want people to use. And because of the complex implementation, it's just taking us a little bit longer to write the standard, and we hope to have it out by the end of 2024.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having this conversation and helping spread the word.
That's Dustin Moody, mathematician at NIST, speaking with our own Brandon Karp. For more information about these post-quantum encryption standards, we'll have links in our show notes. The IT world used to be simpler. You only had to secure and manage environments that you controlled. Then came new technologies and new ways to work. Now, employees, apps, and networks are everywhere. This means poor visibility, security gaps, and added risk. That's why Cloudflare created the first-ever connectivity cloud. Visit cloudflare.com to protect your business everywhere you do business. And finally, in the world of phishing simulations, there's a fine line between effective training and causing unnecessary panic. Just ask the folks at UC Santa Cruz. On August 18th, UCSC sent out an email with the alarming subject line, "Emergency Notification, Ebola Virus Case on Campus." Students and staff were understandably rattled, only to later discover it was all part of a phishing awareness exercise. The email, mimicking a real phishing scam, urged recipients to log in for more details. Classic phishing bait. While the goal was to teach the community to spot phishing attempts, the choice of topic, an Ebola outbreak, backfired spectacularly. The simulated email triggered widespread concern, prompting the Student Health Center to issue a clarification. UCSC's Chief Information Security Officer quickly apologized, admitting the simulation crossed a line and caused undue stress. Lesson learned: phishing simulations should teach caution, not create chaos. In the future, UCSC aims to avoid such alarming scenarios, focusing instead on less panic-inducing content. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Be sure to check out this weekend's Research Saturday and my conversation with Robert Duncan, VP of Product Strategy at Netcraft. We're discussing their work, Mule as a Service Infrastructure Exposed. That's Research Saturday. Check it out. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K CyberWire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Brandon Karp. Simone Petrella is our president. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next week. Strata is your solution for securing on-prem and cloud apps without the hassle of refactoring. Modernize legacy systems with MFA or passwordless authentication and ensure continuous identity availability across multi-cloud environments. Say goodbye to tech debt and hello to seamless integration. Strata helps you reduce stress and gain control over your identity architecture, enhancing security and efficiency. Join industry leaders like 3M, Navy Federal, and Kroger who trust Strata for their identity needs. Visit strata.io/cyberwire to share your biggest identity challenge and receive a complimentary pair of AirPods Pro. Don't miss out. Transform your identity management today at strata.io/cyberwire. And our thanks to Strata for being a longtime friend and supporter of this podcast.